So we're going to have a discussion, and part of the discussion is going to be some responses to what was discussed today. And Floyd Norris of the New York Times promised us that actually he's not in agreement with us. In fact, I think he said we made some factual errors, and the desk is upset with the content of the articles, and they have to be revised very, very rapidly. But we're very happy to have Floyd Norris here, and also Matthew Bishop came in from The Economist, joined us a little late. Matthew's has joined us a few times before at Columbia, does many kinds of writing for The Economist, but most recently has written a book which we should plug on the social investments responsibility. And maybe we can pull out from you, Matthew, along the way whether you think the behavior of the Fed and the Treasury itself has been socially responsible, which I think is an important topic for us to think through. And then Chrystia Freeland from the Financial Times is on her way here, but she's a little stuck in traffic, and so she'll pop in at some point. In my far right, we all know Patrick Bolton, who will help us enliven this session. So we saved the most, as Floyd is saying, people are going to leave. I say, well, we saved you guys here to the last, because then we know people would stay. If it was just us, we weren't so sure. But if you guys were here, we were more confident there would be some people in the room. So Floyd, maybe perhaps you can start off by saying what you heard today. Okay?
I thought it was a wonderful conference. I'm very glad I was able to attend. And I'm a little embarrassed to criticize anybody, since these people are all, I think, eminent people who are a lot more qualified than I, but I will do it anyway. The first issue I want to touch on is a disagreement that would be critical if this conference deserved its title. The title, as you recall, was Preventing the Next Financial Crisis. Of course, it doesn't, because we're not worried about that really yet. We'd like to get out of the current one, and then we can deal with the other one. But the issue is what to do about future asset bubbles. Professor Mishkin defended what I see as a refinement of the Fed's traditional view, which is that inflation in the prices of shoes or toothpaste or milk, that's important, and the Fed has to act. But inflation of asset values is of no importance to the people who make monetary policy. He is willing to bring in a regulatory response if foolish lending is underway. And it's too bad the Fed didn't try that, as he pointed out was suggested during this last round. It might have helped. But I still don't understand why no monetary response is appropriate when asset prices rise beyond reason, but immediate and sharp response is needed as soon as they fell. Basically, I think that economists learned the lessons of the 1930s, and I think they have yet to learn the lessons of the 1920s. Another point that needs to be made, as my friend Justin Layard of the Wall Street Journal, who's here today, reminded me, is that one of the main goals of financial innovation is to get around regulation. They do it well, and I'm not at all sure that bringing in the regulators will accomplish that much. Speaking of financial innovators, they got a lot of praise today. People think we have to, they're wonderful. I don't know why. In my experience, the other goals of the financial regulators that I've seen them use are to duck taxes, to evade accounting rules, and to come up with instruments that can be kept opaque and therefore produce better profits for Wall Street. I don't understand why people really think that we need to bring these innovators back. I really don't. What we had with them, it seems to me, is that they invented the institutions and the devices and the markets that could evade regulation, become a shadow market, first hurt the traditional banks and forced them to compete on their terms. Then they persuaded the banks they had to lever up to compete adequately. And then they blew up the system. Wow, we'd be so much worse off if we didn't have those boys around. I think when we do design regulation, we've got to make sure that the regulators are paying attention to all markets and that they don't decide that some markets are somehow exempt from regulation because they're only peopled by sophisticated investors. There was also some beating up on the accountants. I thought it was interesting that there was a lot more beating up on accountants for mark-to-market regulation, which is forcing the banks to admit the mess they made, rather than on off-balance sheet accounting, which helped them to make the mess. People complain this is pro-cyclical, and I suppose it is. But, you know, in my experience, banks never had problems finding ways to take profits when they wanted to if something had gone up in value. They could always sell it and buy something similar if they wanted to. So the pro-cyclicality introduced by this is not on the upside, it is on the downside. And I think truth is helpful. In any case, right now you pass a rule to get rid of mark-to-market, which the banks desperately want the SEC to do, and you send the word to the world that we've just authorized the banks who you don't trust now to fudge their balance sheets some more. Do you trust them? So those are my principal reactions. And there were a few things I heard. I love the reference to the need for macro prudential regulation. I'd never heard that concept before. I think it's worth pursuing. And I thought Professor Santos had a wonderful insight, which I had never thought of, which was that the increasing complexity of financial instruments led to really dumb markets. Thank you.
Which his colleagues will never let him forget. Matthew, perhaps you want to say a few words. And Christine, if you join us now, that'd be great. Thank you for making it through New York traffic. Perhaps you can say words from how when you see this crisis. How does it look to you in terms of the actions taken and also in terms of the social consequences?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I missed most of the conference. We had our office Christmas lunch today for the entire Economist staff, and then I had the honor of ringing the closing bell at the NASDAQ to promote my book, which I think is a sign of the times in itself, that a role that used to be reserved for people doing IPOs is now for publicizing books about the relationship between values and capitalism. So maybe a good sign of the times in some ways. But I mean, one of the when I first came to New York in 1997 to report on Wall Street, the cover of The Economist in the issue that came out that particular week was a picture of a man in a suit with a bungee jump cord attached to them, falling from the top of a Wall Street tower block, with and the title was "Crash, Damn It," and it was all about the mood in the markets in '97 and how everything felt totally overvalued. And basically, I think since 1997, we at The Economist have more or less consistently taken the view that the markets were overvalued, that although lots of innovations were very positive, overall America faced massive structural imbalances. We've consistently criticized the monetary policy regime of first Greenspan and then subsequently. We've been slightly kinder to Bernanke, but generally been very critical. And we've raised lots of questions about the regulation, particularly the Basel formula for bank capital adequacy and how this may have this unfortunate cyclicality effect and that makes crises worse. So, I mean, I say that really just to say as our starting point is that, we don't feel that in many ways what's happened is all that surprising. The warning signs were there for those that cared to look.